Okay, everyone. Hey, I just want to welcome you to the 2021 Mate ROV Competition VR World. We are in the team workstation area, and the purpose of today is to take you through a bit of a workshop and give you some information and some tools on how to populate your workstation space in the VR world. I'm Jill Zandy. I should have started with that. I am the president and executive director of Mate Inspiration for
Are you on
Innovation.
microphone, Joe?
Oh, I hope so. Yes.
Okay.
I have my amplify on. Can everybody hear me? Give a
Yep.
give a yeah,
Okay.
okay, good. Thank you. I see Jody nodding. I was hoping so. So yeah, I'm Jill Zandy, and to my right, I believe my right, your left is Mr. Mark Gill. He is our world building guru. He's at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota, and he is one of my colleagues that is part of the National Center for Autonomous Technology. And really, we have Mark to thank for the VR space that we're in, and he will be leading us through this presentation after I say a few more words. But I just wanted to acknowledge we've got some other folks from the National Center for Autonomous Technologies here today. We've got John Beck. I believe John made it in. He's the PI and executive director. We've got Zach Blado, who is our wonderful IT specialist, and I'm thinking there may be a few others, but we also have members of Team Mate. So we've got Matt Gardner, competition technical manager. We've got Jody Patterson, who is our regional network liaison. Mike Passavento, who I believe is to my left, your right, who is our live stream guru. Many of you know how much we appreciate Mike and his ability to live stream the World Championship event out to the masses. And I'm sure there are other members of Team Mate here. I think Tawny Gott, who's our business manager, is in the space. But again, I just wanted to welcome everybody here, and I want to say, this is definitely something different for us. COVID challenged all of us, but it also inspired us to think differently and creatively, and really to come up with what you see here and the other spaces that you will see that make up the Mate ROV competition VR world. um, when we looked at the 2021 competition season, we knew that we'd do our best to have an in-person event, and we've got that planned for the beginning of August at East Tennessee State University, and we hope we see many of you in person. But we also knew that not everyone would be able to be there in person for various reasons: pandemic, travel restrictions, you name it. And but we also appreciated that for our competition community, what you appreciate and really value about the mate competition is this coming together at the world championship and at your regional events, the social interaction, the peer-to-peer networking, the sharing, the collaboration. And again, since we knew we weren't going to be able to bring everybody together at the World Championship event, we worked with our partners. We worked with Mark Gill and our partners at NCAT to create the next best thing. And again, it's the Mates ROV competition we VR world. So I just want to thank Mark and John and all of our partners at NCAT for allowing us to reimagine the 2021 competition season and create this world in alt space and help us to think differently and creatively and still bring people together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Today, what he's going to do is basically it's a tutorial, it's a workshop on the workstation space and how you can populate your workstations in the VR world. As we know, those of you who will be in person at the World Championship in Eastern Tennessee, you'll have an opportunity to decorate your workstations there at the university, but you'll also have the opportunity to decorate and populate them here in the VR world. And those that goes for everyone, folks, teams who are going to be there in person, and also teams who are going to compete via telepresence. This is a way that you can highlight your team, highlight all your achievements, and showcase it to the world here our Mate VR competition world. So, again, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. He's going to take you through three different options that you have for populating your workstations in this space, from the very basic to something that could be very creative and perhaps a little challenging for new world builders. But I will give the virtual microphone over to Mark and just thank him for all that he's done and appreciate his expertise in putting all this together.
Well, thanks, Jill. Um, let's see how this goes. This should. I hope this is fun. So the if you look down at the right hand side of your screen, your display, you'll see a button that says raise hand. If you have a question or you want to make a comment or something like that, this is going to be sort of a free form thing. So just if you have a question, you click on that button. I'll see that you've got a hand raised, and I can make your voice louder so everybody can hear you. And that's sort of how that'll go. We'll start it with that. So, we're going to be talking about world building for specifically this Mate ROV competition and world building in AltSpace. Um, the world, or at least potentially could take place in here. This is the workstation space that we've sort of set up for each of the teams. If you'll look around, you'll see that there are six more or less identical sort of bays or pods. And this picture right here is an elevated view of the entire space. You can see that it's segmented sort of like an orange wedge. So we'll have six teams in each one of these spaces, and we'll be able to make multiple copies of this space. So if we have, say, 36 teams, we'll set up six of these spaces. Each one of these spaces will have six teams in it. Um, every team gets a wedge in one of these worlds. And we would ask you that if you're in here building a world in this space, that you keep your content to limit it to just your wedge. You know, don't start taking over somebody else's space, and kind of watch how far into this central area you crowd up. We might actually put something else in here. I'm thinking the and as Jill was saying, I'm going to go ahead and outline the three different ways that you can participate in this, and they're sort of like different tiers or different levels. The most basic thing is you can send us all of your stuff, your images and whatever you want to put in here, and we'll come in here and populate it somewhat. I mean, it'll it'll have your photos in it, and it'll be representative of what you're trying to do. But it may not have a certain creative flair, right? If all of these worlds that we do like this are going to have the same number of images, those images are going to be in pretty much the same place, and they're going to look very much cookie cutter from one to the next if this is the level that you're participating in. And Jill, if I'm saying any of this wrong, this isn't the way that you expect it to be. Just let me know, okay? Um,
No, this is great, Mark. Absolutely.
okay. The next tier of stuff is um, you take the material that I'm going to present today and some of the other tutorial the material that we've sent out, and you build your own assets. You build a kit, and I'm going to explain what a kit is, but you build a kit of objects that you want to use to populate in this space. And in combination with that and some other kits that we'll provide, or kits that are available just right in AltSpace natively, you can populate and dress up and decorate your little wedge of this world here. You can put your photos wherever you want. You can more or less put as much stuff in here as you want. We want to keep it kind of small, and I'm going to talk about optimization in a little bit because this world has weight. It has to maintain a certain level of performance, especially when it gets full of people. So to maintain that level of performance, we're going to talk about how to keep your model small, how to keep your textures small, and try not to put so much stuff in here that it drags the world down for everybody. That's another reason why we're limiting it to six teams per world. If we put all the teams in one world, the world would be too big. It'd be too heavy for most users to get into unless they had a really beefy gaming computer. And we want to be able to support everybody, no matter whatever kind of PC or Mac they happen to have, and whether or not they're using a mobile device like a Quest One or something like that that may not have the horsepower. So yeah, that's option two. We will give you a window of time. What that means is you nominate one person from your team. you get us that person's AltSpace username, and for a window of time, they will have the rights and privileges in this space to build whatever they want. To spawn in their objects from their kit and move their objects around, and they'll have that window of time to decorate their wedge of this world. And then once that window is over, it'll be difficult to make changes to it because we'll lock everything down. And it'll be more or less immutable. I mean, if you make a really bad mistake, we could talk about that. But um, that's option two, is that we let you in here and you build your kit and you build your assets and you bring your stuff in and you decorate it the way you want. And then option three, which would be the option that I would go for. I mean, really, if this would be the one that I would want to do, right? You build your own world. A world completely from scratch. Um, doesn't look anything like this. It can look like anything you want. It could be a realistic setting. It could be an unrealistic setting. It could be on the bottom of the ocean, or on the dark side of the moon, or it could be your corporate headquarters, or it could be your living room, right? It could be pretty much anything that you want, and then we will link to that world in this space, right? You could put up a couple little images and then have a teleporter that would teleport whoever comes in here to your world. Now we'd have some guidelines that we want on that. First, you'd have to have a teleporter in your world that comes back to this space, right? So we'd want them linked both ways, and we'd work with you on how to do that. You would have a lot fewer size restrictions. If if you're building your own world, you've got a lot more room to play with. You don't have to contend with other people from other teams and how heavy their stuff is, and you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry as much about how heavy the overall template is for the world, the basis of the world. And don't worry, these words I'm using will probably make more sense here in a little bit. And you can take longer to build your template if you use the third option, because you'll have more than just this little window of time to get in here and make those changes and make things work. You can take several rounds, you can take several days, and sort of iteratively build it as you develop it. Uh, that definitely would be the option that I would choose, because I'd like to have the time to work on it and the freedom to do what I want and to not have to worry about stepping on or messing up somebody else's work. Any questions on this so far? Hopefully this will all get more clear as it goes along. The very first thing you want to do before you can start building worlds or spawning in objects is you want to make sure that you're joined into the world's beta. So if you go to the little settings menu and you click on settings, under general, there's enable worlds beta, and you want to make sure that that's on. That will add a new tab to this little bar down here, and it'll also give you the ability to sort of roam into different custom built worlds. That's how you turn on the whole side of AltSpace um, that uses custom content, custom worlds, um, and so it's critical that that's one of the first thing that you do. But you only have to do that once. So the tools that you'll need, what kind of tools will I need in order to build for this for AltSpace? Everything is done through the Unity game engine. So if you're familiar with Unity, that'll help you out a lot. If you're not familiar with Unity, it may be a little bit of a learning curve. Fortunately, you don't have to know everything about Unity. You only have to be able to do a couple of things in Unity. Most of the work is actually done in something other than Unity. It's done in a modeling package like Blender or 3D Studio, or you can use pretty much any modeling package. SketchUp, AutoCAD, um, anything that can export a model in the right file format will work for making models into AltSpace. Um, and we're going to make these slides available too. I've got a lot of links in these slides, so it'll be, instead of trying to take screenshots or copy all this down, we'll just make all of this material available to you. Um, there is a new uploader guide that came out um, yesterday. I'm going to be talking about this for a second. Um, yeah, you need the AltSpace uploader, which is a plugin for Unity that actually does the building of the kits and the worlds and uploads it into AltSpace. And there's a guide to installing it and getting it set up and using it. And one of the big differences between the previous version of AltSpace and the version that's coming out today, um, first of all, they're updating the version of Unity that they have to run with. So yesterday you could build with Unity 2019. Now they want us to build with Unity 2020, and it's going to be a big change because a lot of the worlds have to be rebuilt and re-uploaded. Another tool that you're going to have to work with, though, is the mixed reality feature tool, which is a little tool that Microsoft has that they use to add functionality to certain projects. So I have to, in order to get the tools to build in AltSpace, I have to use the mixed reality feature tool for Unity. And so I find the project that I've been working on and go to Discover Features and then click on the AltspaceVR uploader and then import it into my project, and it's done. Right, and now if I open that project up in Unity, it'll be able to, it'll have the tools that it needs to build these things into AltSpace. Speaking of the uploader, this is something that just came out yesterday. they've already done 2 updates to it this morning. Um, so hopefully within the next couple of days, things will smooth out on this process. It's really made my life frustrating today. today. Um, but it's going to be some big changes. They're making this is actually the shape of progress, right? So it's kind of a hiccup right now, and it's really not going to make a big deal to people that are just using AltSpace or people that are just starting to build worlds. It's really only a painful thing if you've been building worlds for like a solid year, and now I have to go through and update everything that I've done over the past year has to be rebuilt or will have to be rebuilt. But the good thing about this is it's always going to give you the latest version of that tool. So I don't have to go find a link, or if I don't have to go to some web repository to see if the tool that I need has been updated. If I use this mixed reality feature tool, it's always going to have the most recent tool or the most recent version of the Unity tools that I need. So that is one good thing about it. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got the right version of Unity. Um, and the Unity Hub is definitely the way to go to get that. So the Unity Hub is here, and it is a really useful feature, or is a really useful tool if I've got multiple projects and different versions of Unity. It can manage which project needs to run on which version of Unity, and it's also how I can get install newer versions. The version that I want is 2019.3.9 is the one that's been tested. Other versions of 2019.3, like if I go to installs and I want to add a new version, it shows me that there's 2019.3.11, but I can find other versions of Unity by going to the download archive here. But the important thing to remember on the version of Unity that I have is I want to look at the modules, and you can set this up when you're downloading Unity, but I want to make sure that I have Android build support, and I want to make sure that I have Mac build support installed as well. And I need those because when you're building something for AltSpace, AltSpace runs on PC, it runs on Mac, and it runs on Android for the Oculus Quest headsets. So you have to have those modules installed so that when I build for AltSpace, I build for all three platforms. And I'll go ahead and let that be opening. So the typical workflow when I'm working with something for AltSpace, I have to have some external tools to create my models. I have to have a 3D modeler to create my models, and this could be just about anything. Typically, people use Blender or 3D Studio Max as the modeling choice, but it could be SolidWorks, it could be AutoCAD, it could be.
Mark,
I'm sorry.
oh, we lost you for, I lost you for a few seconds
Oh,
there.
am I back? Is it good?
You're you're back.
All right. So, yeah, your 3D modeling package could be just about anything. What you want to remember when you're working on a 3D model, though, regardless of what the package is that your models come out as lightweight as possible, with as few polygons as possible. The same thing with images that you might be using for textures. If if it could be just an image that you want to put up like a poster, or it could be a material that you're wanting to get a particular effect on to make something look like it's made out of wood, or make it look like it's made out of rock or something like that. Your images, oh man, and I've got 3D Studio Max and Blender there for both of them. Pff, that should have been Photoshop or Krita or some other image editing package. But these um, these assets, the 3D models or the image textures, they they come out. You need something like an FBX file or an OBJ file, which are read in by Unity, or JPEGs or PNG files are the most common. So if you just stick to these four file types, either FBX or OBJ for your 3D models, and JPEGs or PNGs for your images, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Unity will have no problem with those. Um, you want to avoid things like STL files, and um, you want to avoid projects that are written in like a native modeling format, like SolidWorks parts would not work. They would Unity wouldn't know what to do with, like, say, SolidWorks part files or a SolidWorks assembly. Then those things go into Unity, where I put them together and arrange them in my scene or whatever I want to do. And then I use the AltSpace uploader to get them into AltSpace. Sometimes I don't really spend a whole lot of time in Unity aside from just putting my stuff together and uploading it into AltSpace. Also, Unity doesn't have any way of actually creating content. Unity is just the game engine that AltSpace uses and the editor that you use to um, provide data for the game. But I can't use Unity to create models or create textures. It just doesn't have that functionality. It's always provided by some other external tool. When I'm talking about a world in AltSpace, and people that have heard me talk about worlds and building worlds in AltSpace have heard the pizza analogy a lot of times, right? Um, a world in AltSpace is a lot like a pizza. The template is the base of the world, right? It's the skybox, the things that we see around us, the ground that we walk on. That's the template. You can sort of think of that like the crust of our pizza. And then everything else that we put in here, those are the objects, and they come from kits. So I can use Unity to build a template. I can also use Unity to build a kit, and there's not really a direct relationship between kits and templates. Once I have my template, I can use any kits that I want to decorate the space, sort of like the toppings on the pizza, right? So the crust may be the same from one pizza to the next, but this pizza over here is a barbecue chicken pizza, and this is a supreme pizza with extra anchovies, and this is a Hawaiian pizza with ham and pineapple. But they've all got the same template under it, if that makes any sense. It's also easier for me to change the objects without doing a whole lot of work than it is to change the template. If I want to move the objects around, it's pretty easy for me to change the toppings on the pizza. But if I decide I want a thick crust instead of a thin crust, well, then I've got a little more work I've got to do. And the same thing is true in AltSpace. I can move the objects around or change the objects out, and that is an easier process than working with the template. If I need to make a change to the actual base world, then I have to go back to Unity and maybe even have to go all the way back to my 3D modeling package and start that whole process over again.
Mark, if nothing else, you're making me hungry. It's coming up on lunchtime
Oh,
for us here on the West Coast.
I totally forgot about lunch today. I'm starving. So this is kind of the structure of a basic alt space world, right? And when I'm talking about a world, I can be talking about a bunch of different things that all sort of work together. So inside of the world, I have the template, which is the materials, the textures, the sounds, model, animation. Could be the skybox, could be part of the template, or the actual skybox, which is this imagery that you see that sort of represents stuff that's far off in the distance. I can add that later, or I can change that out later. So I actually list it as a separate thing. But I have my template, I have my skybox, and I have some kit objects. And all of these together add to the weight of the world. If I have a template that is a certain size and I start bringing in kits on top of that, that's going to add to the weight of everything in the world. And all space, well, they tell you 20 megabytes is what you ought to be shooting for. But realistically, about 40 megabytes is going to work just fine. And this is really only if I'm interested in having AltSpace give my event some sort of support. Like if they've got a thing, they used to call it a featured event, but now it's a main event. If I want my world to be um, eligible to be listed as a main event, and what happens with main events is they get promoted at different common spaces around AltSpace. They show up on the website. You get a lot more attention. So if I just want to get a bigger audience, I want my event to be a main event. Um, well, AltSpace won't let you have a main event if it's much bigger than like 40 megabytes spread off between kits and templates. Um, Also, once a world starts getting bigger than, say, 40 megabytes, you start running into performance issues. If I put a ton of stuff in here and I don't have any sort of optimization to it, and it's not really designed to be run in a real-time VR environment, then I'm going to run into performance issues, and it could be really bad for people who are on mobile headsets like a Quest. Um, Performance issues on a headset like that can lead to bad things, to headaches and nausea and just unpleasant support, unpleasantness. Now inside of my world, I can have multiple different. There's all sorts of different ways that I can spread this around. Um, my I can have a world like this world right now is largely just template. It's pretty much only template. There's not a whole lot of kit objects in here. Um, and the skybox in this is actually part of the template itself. So this represents this world that we're in right now. A lot of other worlds have it more spread out more evenly, where we have kit objects make up about half the space, but I still have a nice template, and the skybox may be something that I've added later. And you see a lot of worlds that are built with this way, where the entire world is built out of objects made from kits. And there's some amazing stuff out here that really has just a blank template. There's no way to not have a template in an alt space world, even if the template is just empty, just blue void. Um, you got to have a template. It won't let you build a world without a template. But I can have a blank, pretty much a blank template, and I can fill that world with kit objects. And if I take this route, I really never have to see Unity at all unless I want to make a custom kit. There's a lot of kits in AltSpace already, and you can do a lot of world building with just the stuff that's available. And so I can get away from Unity a little bit, or almost entirely actually, depending on how I design my world, if this is the approach that I take. Now, eventually, this world that we're going to be in here is going to be more like the one in the middle because I do expect that we're going to be filling these spaces up with lots of kit objects. So, some things to remember about kits. Every kit gets loaded completely, even if I only use one object out of that kit. Um, oh, and I had planned to show you something else here too. So this, when I build a world on AltSpace and I go to that world's page, I can look at the diagnostics of that world. So this is the main world page. I go to this diagnostics page, which gives me this handy little message that AltSpace will be upgrading. You need to upgrade all your stuff. Um, and then it gives you this little rundown here. So I've got I don't have a whole lot of objects in here. I don't have any kits in here. So what you want to look is you want to look for all these little green checks right here. Um, I've only got one teleporter in here. I'm allowed to have 10. My skybox is I don't even have a skybox because that's into my template. I have a missing kit, and that's my fault because I screwed something up trying to update this world to the new version of Unity today. Um, and then it tells you if you have a PC version, a mobile template, um, and a Mac template. So this is a useful page to look at if you're building a world from scratch, and you want to see, how is it performing? How is it gonna work? I probably wouldn't. I'd have to fix that right there, but I wouldn't have any problem getting this world featured as a main event. So if you're working on your models, and this is going to be true of any modeling package that you want, whether it's 3D Studio or Maya or Softimage, whatever. You want to focus on a low polygon count, right? And if that means making your curves look chunky and blocky, then maybe your curves need to look chunky and blocky. But you want to shoot for about 100,000 polygons or less on any particular object, and the lower than that, the better. But especially if I want to put multiple objects, I wouldn't want to go more than 100,000 polygons. And you want to make sure that the objects have UV maps. You can get around this, but they're going to look better in every situation if you have UV maps on them. Now, some modeling packages like AutoCAD or SolidWorks don't really have a way of doing UV maps. That's more of a 3D modeling, like Blender or 3D Studio Max would have something like that. Um, if you want your object to have animations, the animations can actually come from either the modeling package itself. So, like 3D Studio has got animation capability in it, so does Blender and a lot of other things. I could do the animation in my 3D package, and it'll stay when I import it into Unity, or I can do the animation in Unity. Either way, it should work, and then that animation will play when I bring the object into the space. You Assigning the materials in Unity is important because, like I said, just like UV maps, not everything handles materials the same way. So a file from SketchUp or a file from SolidWorks may not have properly defined materials, or if they do have defined materials, it's probably not going to be in a format that Unity understands. So a lot of times I don't bother actually defining the materials in my 3D modeling package. I'll just define, what things are what material, and then I'll just sort of decide what that material is when I get it into Unity. So like in this example image here, I've just got it broken up into very broad, solid colors. I've got, purples and greens and blues. And in my modeling package, that's really the only thing I'm trying to decide is, you know, how am I going to distribute the materials throughout my model? Now, when I get it over into Unity, that's when I decide, okay, this blue stuff, I want it to be concrete, and the green stuff, I want it to be marble, and the white stuff, I want it to glow. And I make those decisions once I get it into Unity. That way, I avoid duplicating a lot of work. A lot of times I find myself, if I spend a lot of work defining materials in my modeling package, a lot of times I have to redo that work when I get it over to Unity because Unity just doesn't understand the materials coming from the package. And then um, you want to try and keep the file size of your exported models less than 1 MB is kind of what your target. And if you've been working with SolidWorks, it may generate some really big files. So you might find yourself going through and reducing the complexity of your geometry, reducing the number of faces that you allow it to use to generate a curve, for instance, um, taking out everything that's not um, easily visible. All the internal stuff, take it out. We if we can't see it, it doesn't need to be in there because it just adds weight to the model. And UV coordinates, if you're not sure what UV coordinates are, they're how a modeling package or a piece of software or pretty much anything in 3D, how it decides what part of an object gets painted what color from a texture. So in this example here, I have a material and I have a texture on this material, and in this texture I have 6 different images of the remarkably talented and legendary actor Nicolas Cage. And I've got that mapped onto a cube, and you can see that there's a different face on every face, and the faces are pointed in different directions. So the UV coordinates are what my modeling package uses to determine that the top part of this cube is going to be this portion of the image, and this size of the cube is going to be which one? It's this one. This part of the image. Also notice that it's backwards too. So this is how a modeling package. Let's say hypothetically I've got a box, right, and the box has hinges on it, and it's got brass hardware on it, and it's got metal straps, but it's made of wood, right? Um, so I can have part of this image, part of the box, um, that's got a wood texture on it, another part's got a metal texture on it, or maybe 2 different metal textures. And it's the UV coordinates that tell the modeling package which parts of that box are made out of what material. I, and you don't really have to go into a lot of detail with your UV coordinates, but your models are going to look better if they've got some kind of UV coordinates assigned to them. And once again, this is one of those things that comes from my modeling package. I can't change it in Unity. I can't add it or remove it or change it in Unity. That's something that has to be done in my modeling package. So, can you guys see yourselves?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Neat little hollow mirrors. Okay. So, when I get into AltSpace, let's say I've got a kit built, and I'm in a terrain here, or I'm in a template here. If I have the right to build in this space, I'll see this little icon here that says World Editor on it. I can open that up and go to my editor panel, and there I see all of the objects that are in this world. And if I go into edit mode, I'll actually see them highlight as I look around the space. I've got different groups of objects. So I've got AltSpace, and then I've got some kits and some skyboxes and some basic stuff like teleporters and text labels, and the web projector that we're looking at behind me is in here. If I look under mine, I see that I've got some skyboxes that I could upload, or I've got some photos that I can add to the world, or some kits that I've made. To add something to the world, I just find it in the kit and click on it, and then it just sort of spawns in. Now, after it comes in, I can see it in this list here. So I've got, there's my barrel, and there it is sort of floating in the air. I've got these little grips on it that I can grab it and rotate it or scale it up or position it. And there we go. There's my barrel.
Are you gonna hop in the barrel next, Mark?
No, I wasn't gonna hop. Not really in the barrel, and I can't really get on it either. It's not something I can get on. But what I can do. So let me go. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you is featured kits. So if I go to featured kits, there are pages and pages of stuff that is all going to need to be updated over the next week or so. So you might want to wait a little while before you start using some of these featured kits because they may or may not work in the coming future. But let's assume that they do work. I can click one of these like under city props here. I've got a nice hamburger, and I can put my hamburger. And now if I click on the gear on any of these objects, I'll get this artifact properties page that tells me where exactly in the world it is, basically how big it is. But I can also click on this and make it an object spawner. And then once I hit confirm and go back into it, um, I have a new interactable object scale here, which this is how big I want the model to be when I pick it up. And now the object is a spawnable object, and I can pick it up and pretend to nom 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 on it, and then throw it away. And then while it's there on the ground, somebody else can pick it up. And any
Toss
object
it
that
back
you,
to Mark.
yeah. Now, if it lays on the ground for like 30 seconds, it'll just go poof and spawn back in. Um, and you can have a lot of fun with these, with making some of these objects interactable so that people that come into your space, um, a lot of times I see they'll have like a house party decorated, and people will have like, you know, drinks and bottles of beer and pizzas and burgers and stuff all over the place that people can interact with and hold while they're while they're messing around. Some other stuff that you can do in the editor, like if I go under AltSpace and look under their kits, see the burger came back, poof. Um, there's some interactable stuff and some indoor props that you can drop down. So like I can put up a basketball goal or a cornhole board with bean bags and fireworks, and the fireworks are always cool. And so these objects are a little bit different in that They can be interacted with by multiple people. So you can do stuff like fireworks, or there's all sorts of stuff. There's
Fun.
snowballs that you can throw, and these things are specialized and provided by AltSpace. So they just sort of work.
And just in time for the 4th of July
Yeah, yeah.
here in the US. Thank you, Mark.
And then if you decide we've had enough fun and you're ready for people to stop shooting fireworks off in the middle of your presentation, you can just delete the box.
So, Mark, I have to say earlier, Jody and I were in the Welcome Center
Uh huh.
and we're having fun with the cornhole, the beanbag toss. And now I can appreciate how you've set it up because as soon as the bag, we threw it and we didn't get into the hole, but we did at least hit the board. After several seconds, as you just said, it disappeared, if you will, and then spawned back
Yeah.
to the point, I guess the spawn point. So
You know,
that was
and that's
now I can appreciate what you're saying.
yeah, and that's sort of a difference between just taking an object and making it an object spawner like that hamburger, or using one of the interactables that AltSpace has, like the fireworks box. The fireworks box is there, and as many people that can click on it can get a firework out of it, and it never runs out of fireworks. But the object spawners, you only get one object, and that object, once I pick up that object, nobody else can pick up, say, a hamburger until I throw this one down or it respawns or something. So you may want to put like multiple hamburgers down. You really only need one firework box, but if I want to use some object spawners, I may need a bunch of different hamburgers, if that makes any sense.
That doesn't it gets making me hungry. Um, so question, and this is probably a very obvious one, but
Um,
what you just showed, like the works and some of these other things, they're already kind of pre-built in AltSpace. So folks can access those as opposed to having to build them themselves.
that's
Is
right.
that a
That's right. And that's kind of what I mean when back on this slide where I was talking about, you can start with just like a blank empty template, and then I can use kit objects from the world building tools to build the entire world. Because I can take those objects out of the kit and I can make them any size I want. And I can put them anywhere I want. And I've seen really incredibly detailed worlds built. They actually call the process hand sculpting,
mm,
where I use, say, I'll bring this back over. So if I look in the editor panel under kits, AltSpace has a geometrics kit that has just very simple geometry in it. Now, what's different about these as opposed to other nuts. I hate it when I try to click on something and I teleport. Um,
oh, the problems in interacting in the VR space.
I know it.
Different set of
First world
problems,
problems
right?
right here. So if I bring in something from the geometrics kit like this, I can change its color. So there's an entire group of people in AltSpace that build massively complicated worlds using nothing but kits like this geometrics kit, because what that does is it makes the world really really small. If I have an empty template and I'm only using one kit, um, it's it's real easy to create some amazing stuff. But these things can be scaled up to pretty much any size that you want, and I can stack them on
Whoa.
top of each other and mix and match. Oh, that may have been
Ooh.
a little excessive. push myself behind the screen there. I'll just raise that up in the air, get it out of the way.
That's great. And again, I am new to all of this, and certainly have been learning a ton over the last 6 months that we've been working on this. But and so this might be something sometimes I'm a slow learner, but what I like in this too, Mark, is almost like in SolidWorks. There's in SolidWorks, there can be toolkits or assemblies or objects that other people have created that you can get to, and as opposed to creating your own. Like for example, PVC pipe. Somewhere along the line, some ROV teams have created, kits, if you will, of PVC pipe. And as long as they make them accessible to the whole community, a new team's not having to recreate the PVC pipe, but they can use the already created PVC pipe to start to model out their ROV in SolidWorks. And so it seems similar here.
Yeah, it's a very similar concept, and the stuff that you find, especially in the featured kits. So these featured kits, and there's a bunch of them. And they've got special effects and lighting effects and plants and sound effects and stuff. All of these have been sort of vetted as performing really well in AltSpace. So if you build your
Gotcha.
world with those featured kits, you don't have to worry so much about the size of the assets or how well they're going to perform. Um, but if I went to like CG Trader or Sketchfab or got something off, especially Thingiverse, if I got something off of Thingiverse, it's probably going to be way too big to
Mm.
work in here. You really want to avoid files that were designed for 3D printing. So if you see something that's like an STL file, which is like a 3D print file or a CNC machine file, it's going to be outrageously huge and probably not a good fit for real-time VR.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so what other resources do you have for learning about building kits and building templates in AltSpace? There are groups that perform world building tours. And if I go to altvr.com and look under channels, they have a channel of world building tours, and there are several of these coming up. And these tours, um, every other Tuesday, I think it's every other, maybe it's every other Wednesday. I don't know. Every other one is a beginner's tour to world building in AltSpace, and they go to a bunch of worlds that are the worlds are actually designed to teach world building. So they go to a world that everything in the world is about how do I build worlds with AltSpace, how do I construct and work in this sort of 3D environment. Um, so that would be a really good resource is going to these world building tours events. Uh, ed- Educators in VR also has regular world tours where they do a similar sort of thing, an introduction to world building and world tours. But they just finished like an insane month long event of like a month long conference here in AltSpace and across 22 other platforms. Actually, they were in Engage and a bunch of stuff. But so I don't think they're going to be doing a whole lot over the summer, at least from an organized perspective. And I think we've got linked to those um, world building tours also in the tutorial documentation for this.
Yeah, and I know you took part in that, Mark, and it was definitely a busy month. And I
Yeah.
think just to let everyone know, as Mark said, he'll share his slides, but also we're working on a document that essentially summarizes these three different options. From the basic where you share with us your company logo and photos, and we have some parameters for how to do that, to the more complex, as Mark said, create your own world, right? Create your own corporate headquarters, and then let us know, and we'll link to it and make sure that that portal, it goes between both worlds. So we have a document. We're going to summarize that and include a bunch of these links to these different resources. But I'm really curious, as I'm sitting here and listening, and again, I'm learning along with all of you. These are new skills that we're presenting to the mate competition community. Well, maybe not new skills for our participants, but they are new skills in the sense that we're asking you to now apply them, right? Apply them in in a mate context. And so I'm going to look out and ask folks who are here, how many of you have dabbled in AltSpace before? Raise your hand, do an emoji, however you want to indicate that. I'm just real curious, or if this is somewhat new territory.
Anybody? Bueller?
Anybody? Anybody?
Bueller?
Yeah, there you go. That's why Mark and I get along, because we have the same sense of humor. So this is a lot, right? It's brand new stuff. And I think, though, again, for many of you, and we know your capabilities because we've seen your robots and seen you compete over the years. You have the knowledge, the computer, the programming, the creativity in you. It's just asking you to apply them in a different way this year. And again, certainly don't feel over don't feel obliged, and certainly don't feel overwhelmed to dive into option 3, which is build your own world. You can start with just preparing your assets for your workstation, and we'll decorate it for you. I like to use the word decorating, probably not the VR term to use, but I like to use it. And then the second one is, as Mark was sharing, with you preparing your own kits. I mean, if you want to attempt that, that's fantastic. But again, don't feel obligated to do that. But I will tell you, I'm hopeful, and I think Mark and I and teammate and other colleagues within the National Center for Autonomous Technologies, we see this as something that will persist long after this, right? I mean, I mentioned earlier, it was really COVID that inspired us to create this and think differently and do something different. But I think that I'm feeling that this is something that can persist beyond COVID, right? When we're all back to quote unquote normal. And it's something that will continue with the MATE program, because inevitably there's teams that can't make it, for they don't qualify for world championship, or they don't have the finances to travel, but they still crave that interaction and that community building and the networking and the learning from each other. So I think we will, this is a test for us this year, but I really feel that this VR space is something that will continue into future years as a way to come together. And we've talked about, in future too, perhaps incorporating some skill building exercises here, right? Maybe we do a basic ROV building, and then we scale it up from there. So this is a first attempt for us. It's really about the social interaction, and for those teams that are moving on to the World Championship in either the in-person or the telepresence category, getting you introduced and starting to hopefully inspire you to apply these skills to things like world building and alt space. But again, the primary for our community is really about the social engagement and bringing people together. And so I appreciate everyone who's been here, and I want to ask you to please share with the rest of the network. We've got a handful of people in here today, but I'm hoping that when the World Championship takes place at the beginning of August, that we'll have hundreds of participants in here, and they will be looking at these screens and watching the live stream that Mike and the live stream team are putting together, because our plan is to broadcast it to the screens in this space. So even if you can't be there in person, you can come into this space and interact with other avatars from all around the world, just like you would do if you were in person at a world championship, and sit on the stand, sit on the barrel, eat a hamburger, and take in the live stream, the competition, that's happening in person. So again, definitely new territory for us. And so I appreciate you all. Again, we've all been challenged, and we're challenging ourselves here too. So I appreciate who's here, and please, we'll do our best to continue to promote these opportunities. And I'm going to ask you all to do it too. And I think Mark, as he said earlier, you guys have all been on the pool deck, right? And something has failed, and you've got the pressure, and you've got a few seconds to get things back together, or your time's about to run out. Well, that's pretty much what Mark faced this morning when he woke up and realized, "Oh my god, Unity needed an update and all of the assets, the decorations, if you will, that were in this workstation suddenly needed upgraded and suddenly weren't here." So, if we would have been in here yesterday, you would have
Yeah,
seen
it
photos
looked a lot
and
different
some
yesterday.
videos. Yeah. So, Mark is working on the fly and under pressure just like you all do at a mate competition. And so I think we talked about having another one of these in a couple of weeks and trying to really get other teams. We still have teams, you know, get your videos into Matt if you're going through the World Championship qualification round and get them in before June 13th and get approved so you can advance to the World Championship. And we have a couple more regionals that have yet to take place. So within a couple of weeks, we should have our final team list for both in person and telepresence. And hopefully, if we hold one of these again, another workshop in another few weeks, we'll get all of those teams eager to be in here and learn learn
Yeah,
what this
that'd
new
also be a good
requirement is all
opportunity
about.
if people get playing around with it and they have some questions. You can come back. We have another session like this where you can ask questions. Speaking of questions, there's a hand raise. Chang, did you have a question?
Yeah. So, are there official dates for the competition yet?
Jill.
What was that question? I'm sorry. Can you ask it again, please?
What are the official dates for the
Oh,
competition?
that's a great question. So the in-person competition in Eastern Tennessee, the dates are August 5th through the 7th, with check-in and safety checks happening on the 3rd and the 4th. So they're posted on our site, and everything looks good. We will have some guidelines, health and safety guidelines in place, but things are looking good, and we hope to see you there. What team are you on, Chan?
I'm guessing the St. Cloud State.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. I thought I was assuming you were an ROV competition participant. So apologies for that. Hey, but someday St. Cloud State will have a team, right? Mark, John, Zach, everybody, right? Someday.
Yeah, I think.
And Um, just one more thing before I forget. I can see Matt Gardner over there. He can wave his hand, do an emoji. But in a couple of weeks, we do have planned another event for the space. There's Matt. There you go. Um, those of you who are competition participants know Matt well, maybe not know his avatar well, but know Matt well. So in a couple of weeks, we plan to in AltSpace, we'll do our typical team briefing and prop demonstration Q&A, if you will. So I know we did that on Facebook. What, Matt? It was like February of 2020. But we'll do a review in AltSpace here in 3 weeks time, I think is what we have on the calendar. And then we've got a sort of special, well, maybe not a surprise because we've been talking about this ROV simulator for quite a while now, but we're going to do a launch on that day as well. So it'll be an opportunity to hear from Matt, ask him any questions about competition, mission tasks, and props and rules, and also to get a preview, if you will, or a little bit more information about the ROV simulator that we worked on with partners at Clemson University. So just trying to give that event and another world building tutorial event a plug here. So just keep an eye out on the Mate site and via active and social media, and we'll get those dates and times out to everyone.
Ryan, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm from Fish Logic, so
Yay!
from Macau. Yes. So it would be really nice if we can. So I want to ask this: is that can we not just upload that our current control box and our current ROV as well as our previous year's ones?
To AltSpace to your workstation area.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I would say that'd be great. You could show the evolution, right, of your ROV or your various examples that you've had over the how many years have you all been competing? Quite a few. I think that's a great idea. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. You know, it. You're really kind of only limited by your own imagination. Well, in this space, you're also limited by one sixth of the space. But outside of this space, you can do anything you want, really.
Yeah. So for our side, we also made our own RV simulator. That was for an exhibition by one of our students. But then we have also made some low poly models for that. So I'm just wondering if we put all of those together, would it be too much and exceed, or as long as it's just within the 40 megabyte limit, then it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if really, you can go past that 40 megabyte limit if you're building your own world. It's all really a matter of how much support you want from AltSpace for that world. I mean, I've seen some worlds that are over 200 megabytes and they don't perform very well. But you can get away with bigger than 40 megabytes, which doesn't sound like a whole lot.
Yeah.
Noah, you had a question. Sorry, Noah.
Thank you. Yeah, I have two questions actually. The first is, what exactly is happening on August 3rd? And is it okay if our team arrives on that day?
Hey, Noah, what team are you with?
I am with the Robo Sharks from Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, hey, good to meet you. Welcome, a brand new team. My sister lives in Boulder, so I know she's going to be secretly, well, maybe not so secretly, rooting for your team. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We'll actually do safety checks and check in on the third and the fourth. And I do know that we've heard from one team who's coming from Wisconsin. Their travel, they won't even be able to check in until early Thursday morning, which we'll allow. I mean, it's great if you come in advance, especially as a new team, get settled in. But yeah, no worries. We'll get you checked in and get you safety checked. So welcome. We're so thrilled. It'll be our first team from Colorado, the winner of
Hey,
the brand new inaugural Mate Rocky Mountain Regional. So welcome, Noah and your team. We're excited to have you.
thanks. We're super excited to be coming. And the other question is there a deadline for these assets to be created yet, or is that still pretty far away?
The deadline that we sent, and help me out here, July
I think it's
1st is.
July 1st, Jill.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. July 1st is what we said, but we may decide
Okay.
to push that a little bit. We wanted to, get your spaces decorated so we could showcase it in the world and other events that we might have planned for July. But we may want to, I'm thinking we may want to push that out a little bit. So we'll let you know if we do. But right now, July 1st is the target date.
Also, it's going to be a little more
Okay.
flexible based on which approach you want to
Yeah,
take.
true.
Like if you want us to decorate your space, we kind of need that stuff pretty quick, right? But if you're going to make your own world and we're just going to link it in, then you can take longer to develop that, and it could be sort of a continuous process. And if you're going to do the second tier where you're going to build the kits and then we're going to let you in here, then your deadline is effectively whatever window of time you've been given to get into this space. That's really when it needs to be done by. So it really depends on which approach you plan on taking.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that
thank
window
you.
of time sorry, Noah, that window of time we have, we need as a team to define that. We were bouncing around some time frames, and so certainly after this, Mark and I and others can powwow and figure out what that time frame would be. Yeah, to
All right,
Mark's point,
sounds
you
good.
could do your own corporate headquarters. You could be making changes to that, right up until, geez, you start getting too busy at the in-person competition.
All right. Well, we have gotten to the end of my prepared material.
Yeah, anything else? Any other questions from anyone? Mark, this is so super. And I always with these, I learned so much from you. I continue to learn a lot. I know I keep asking some of the same questions. Sometimes it takes a little bit to stick in my brain, but I've really been learning a lot about this. So thank you so much for putting this together and for your patience and your expertise.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a lot of fun, and it's a never ending learning curve. It just it just never stops.
Hey, so I'm wondering, Mark, the portal, if everyone turns around from looking at Mark and sees the portal to the Welcome Center, I mean, if you've got some time, I'm going to encourage folks to go over to the Welcome Center and check it out. You can toss beanbags, cornhole. Matt's a cornhole champion. I'm better at giant Jenga, so I'm really hoping a giant Jenga game shows up in that space. But there's basketball hoops, there's an aquarium, there's you'll see those of you who have competed in the past, you might see yourself in one of the photos, one of the slideshows that's going on over there. We'll be populating that space too with some of our sponsors' logos. That'll be coming up, but I definitely encourage you to head over to the Welcome Center if you've got some time now to check it out. It's really cool, and thus far it's survived the upgrade.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
all
I
right.
just have a quick question for everyone. This is Matt. I'm
Hey,
just
man.
wondering how many people are here through the 2D client versus have a headset on.
I see one person with a
Yeah, he's
headset here.
he's a headset.
Okay, you can
Matt, that's
tell?
a
I
great
can't
question.
tell. Okay.
Yeah, if they're in a headset, their hands move. If they're on the 2D client, their hands are stuck to the sides.
I have a headset
Yeah, I happen
on
to have
actually.
one.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Noah.
so I was just curious. I'm 2D, of course.
Yeah, I actually have a headset at home that I'll use for future events, but I'm on vacation right now.
Lucky. Yeah, Matt, that was a great question. I was wondering that too. But like Mark, I suddenly realized people that were waving at me were probably wearing a headset, and
Yep.
those whose hands like mine are just hanging loose. I prefer the 2D. I do have a headset, and yeah, like I'm not on vacation. It's right next to me, but I prefer the 2D, especially for things like this. We're just trying to kind of take things in. But I'll pull out the headset here. If
I
I'm
did.
waving to you, you'll
I
know.
definitely prefer the headset experience over the 2D client. I use the 2D client a lot if I'm driving an event, like if I've got this web projector and I need to do things on the screen and do things on the computer and I'm recording and I've got a half dozen things going on. It's like flying a spaceship over here. But I definitely prefer the experience that I get from inside of a headset. Um, Ryan, do you have another question? I saw you put your hand back up.
Yes, I want to know when does the randomizer comes out for the computer vision task? Yeah, because we have been preparing for that task, and then yeah, we're in a limbo whether we should continue our previous iteration on how we develop stuff, or we need to focus on adjusting how we see the tasks based on the randomizer.
So
That's a
so
that's a question
I
for Matt. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know when the randomizer and if you're unfamiliar with what I was talking about, for those doing the telepresence event, since there are some things that teams shouldn't know beforehand if they do it in their own pool, you're gonna put your name in a form, and within a minute you'll get a bunch of randomized photos. I know that the people developing that have all the photos they need, all the photos so you can get a randomized section. I don't quite know when that's gonna come out, but it shouldn't be too long.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, so are you all thinking you don't need the Matt, correct me if I'm wrong,
Oh,
but
sorry.
they don't need the randomizer if they're just for their video, their qualification video, correct? They just need it for the telepresence category.
Yeah,
Oh, we
there's
already
nothing. Yeah, there's
yeah,
nothing you
we
need.
already submitted our video presence. No,
You're
the video qualifier, and then I think we have received the email that we've passed. So we're
Yeah,
just
you're
focusing on
from Macau Fish Logic, right? Is what you said.
yes,
Yep,
yes,
you guys have advanced to the world championship. Your qualification video is good. So yeah, for I then assume you're going to be doing the telepresence event.
yes. That's we can't leave
So
Macau. Yeah.
I kind of figured. Yeah, so I don't have an answer for you. I don't know, but it should be pretty soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Ryan, I was hopeful. I had heard that either Thomas or Andy had been to the States for some other competition event. So I was somewhat hopeful that you all might be able to travel. But I'm glad to see you in AltSpace, and we'll be back in AltSpace during the event, so we'll see you in there. But I am disappointed I won't see you in person. But yeah, Matt, we should circle back and kind of get a deadline for those kinds of things and look at the telepresence manual. Again, this is all new for us, right? Right, y'all, not only the VR space, but if you think about it, we're essentially running two competitions, an in person and then a telepresence competition. So in person, we kind of got that dialed in. We've got about 20 years of experience doing that. But the telepresence is a little new, so bear with us, okay?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've been preparing for the past 2 years, trying to see if we're able to, compete. But then, of course, COVID happened, and then yeah, uh, still kept hoping that we could have came. But then, yeah, having the telepresence is already quite nice. That at least what we're prepared for, we'll get to at least join the competition, but in a different way. But at least we get to join.
Yeah. No, that was the goal. In addition to, setting up this VR world to bring people together, certainly making sure that those teams who could overcome the many, many challenges that the pandemic put in front of us, those who could do that and get a working vehicle and progress and advance to the world championship, you had a way to kind of have that culminating event. um, so yes, I'm glad you're working towards things, and thanks for that question. We'll get together and get back to you with and get back to the other teams in the telepresence. So folks have until June 13th to get their videos into Matt, and then June 24th to tell us, okay, are you doing telepresence or are you doing in person? So quite honestly, Ryan will probably be shortly after that, because once we get all of our telepresence teams, then we'll communicate that information. So probably shortly after June 24th, I would think. Okay. Guys, that hamburger is making me really hungry, and it is like after noon here on the Pacific time, and Mark hasn't eaten, so
No, I
we
haven't. Dylan, you had a question?
Uh, yeah. Um, for about the World Championship, I know for the dorm housing, you said that there needs to be a chaperone, on per 10 students, but we have a few kids that are over 18. So do we still need a chaperone for the dorms?
So hey, what team are you with?
Um, Same as Noah,
Oh, good.
Colorado
Okay.
Robo Sharks. Yeah.
Good. I was thinking, so hey, good to meet you and welcome. Again, we're happy to have our first team from Colorado. So, the students who are over the age of 18 do not count in that mix, right? So if you've
Okay.
got six students under 18, you need one chaperone, and six under 18 and maybe six over 18. The over 18s, they don't count in that ratio, if that makes sense.
Okay. But okay, I got it. Um, and about the dining options at East Tennessee State University, um, will the dining hall and be open, and will we get dining cards? Will those plans be available?
Yes, so we are not the dining hall, which is really tasty. We ate there when we did a site visit at the beginning of May. It will be open and they have a variety of food. We are not doing meal cards because we wanted to give you the
Okay.
there's no advantage to doing meal cards. It's the same price. So if you go in and pay for breakfast and pay for lunch and you pay for dinner, if you ate all three meals there, you're not having a savings if we bundle them up into one sort of meal package. But it will be open and you will have the ability to run in there and just pay as you walk in, just like any other um you know place that you'd go to eat. Just pay as you walk in and choose what meals you want to have there versus what meals you might want to go. Just across the street there's a Bojangles and there's a Wendy's, and I'm going to point you to, if you look on the Mate ROV competition website, if you look under, it's actually placed under the header regionals, which doesn't make sense. But if you look at it, if you hover over regionals, the first item you'll see will be World Championship. And if you click on that and visit that page, it will have within the housing Q&A document, it will have more information about meals and various other restaurants, both on campus and off.
Okay, thanks. And kind of the last question is, are you gonna provide anything like relating to travel, like airport shuttling? Like, should we arrive in Johnson City TRI Airport, or
Yeah,
do we just get there on our own?
The travel is up to you. So you're right, TRI, Tri-Cities Airport Services, Johnson City. And so once you get there, and we'll have to pull up, and thank you for saying that. We put some information on shuttle and taxi services from the airport. We put that out there in 2019 when we held the competition in Kingsport. Johnson City is one of the Kingsport, Johnson City, and Bristol are the three. Those are the three. Those make up the Tri-Cities, right? And so it'll be the same airport. So I can get the information from 2019 and repost it. But when you arrive there, your transportation is up to you. If you want to if you fly in, if you want to take a taxi, or if you want to rent a car or do an Uber, that's all up to you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Great questions.
Anybody else?
And these are great questions. And I think too, we didn't anticipate covering those types of questions today, but I think certainly in 3 weeks with Matt's briefing and prop demonstration, maybe we'll make sure to offer up some time for more logistics and potentially deadline questions and all those types of things. So good. All right. Well, I think Mark, thanks again. You're trying to eat that hamburger, but I think you should get some real food. And I'm going to encourage folks, yeah, if you've got time, pop over to the Welcome Center. It's really the slideshows are going. Again, Ryan, series, and some others who have participated in the past may see photos of yourselves from previous competitions, and we've got some other things going on. And the aquarium is cool to look at. And there's the cornhole and basketball. I don't think Mark, you might need to add some fireworks to the Welcome Center. Those
Yeah.
were fun.
Yeah. I can
Please.
put some back there.
Well, all right. Thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. And I think I'll be I'm going over to the Welcome Center. No pardon,
Thanks,
excuse,
everyone.
pardon. Thanks everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. See you in a couple.